I never thought a peaceful Saturday morning by the lake would end with me in handcuffs. The sun had barely crept over the horizon, bathing Willow Creek Lake in a soft golden glow. A light mist hovered above the water, and the only sounds were the rustle of trees and the distant call of birds. I stood at the water's edge, boots planted firmly in the damp soil, rod in hand, a small tackle box open beside me. Fishing was my peace. After working 60-hour weeks as a mechanic, the lake was my escape. No phones, no noise, just the breeze, the line, and the water. I had just reeled in a solid basone of the best I'd caught in weeks, and I was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. That's when I heard it. "Put the rod down, sir, now." I froze. The line in my hand slackened. I turned around slowly to see two men in dark blue uniforms stomping toward me through the grass. Their shirts read HOA Security in big white letters. Behind them came a woman with a clipboard and two older men, all wearing matching windbreakers with the Willow Creek Lakeside Community logo. "What's going on?" I asked, blinking in confusion. One of the guards reached for something on his belt. The other tapped his walkie-talkie. "We've got him. Code 47, unauthorized fishing." "Unauthorized?" I said, stepping back. "I live right down the road on Brentview. I've fished here every Saturday for 6 years." "Not anymore," the woman said coldly. Her name tag read Pamela Reese, HOA president. "We passed a new bylaw last month," one of the boardmen said. "Only registered HOA residents are allowed access to the lake and its perimeter." I frowned. "What? That lake has never belonged to the HOA." "It does now," Pamela snapped. "We acquired the rights from the county. It's officially under Willow Creek HOA control. If you're not on the member list, you're trespassing." "You've got to be kidding me." "I'm not. This is a private lake now. You're breaking HOA rules and state trespassing laws." "That doesn't even make sense. You can't arrest someone for fishing." Pamela smirked. "Watch us." One of the guards stepped forward. "Turn around! Hands behind your back!" I looked around. Other neighbors had started to gather. Some stood with coffee mugs in hand, watching silently. Others took out their phones, recording. I saw an old man shake his head and mutter, "Not again." "I'm not resisting," I said, "but this is insane." Cold steel clicked around my wrists as they cuffed me and led me toward their HOA-branded security truck. I saw my fishing pole lying in the dirt. The bass I caught flopped helplessly in the bucket, forgotten. My tackle box was still open, hooks and lures scattered on the grass like they didn't matter. I stared at the lake as they pulled me away. That calm, beautiful water had never felt so far. The truck rumbled to life, and the guard sat me in the back like I was some criminal. I looked through the tinted glass at Pamela and the board members. They weren't angry. They were smug, like they'd just scored a win. One of the guards muttered to the other, "Third one this week." "Third?" I leaned forward. "You mean other people got arrested too?" "Not your business," the driver said. But it was my business. It became my business the moment they clamped metal cuffs on my wrists for doing something I'd done every weekend without trouble. They drove me to a small security outpost at the edge of the HOA community, a place I didn't even know existed. It wasn't a real police station, just a converted maintenance shed with a computer, some folding chairs, and a camera mounted to the ceiling. They sat me down and took a photo. "For records," they said. Then they gave me a citation. Not from the city, not from the county, from the Willow Creek HOA. Fined $2,500 for unauthorized recreational activity. My jaw dropped. "This is a joke, right?" "You have 10 business days to pay the fine or appeal at the HOA board meeting," Pamela said, reappearing at the door like some villain from a soap opera. I was stunned, furious, humiliated. But above all, I was curious. "How'd you even get control of the lake?" I asked. Pamela raised an eyebrow. "That's classified board information. All above board, I assure you." I left the outpost that morning with a citation, no fishing gear, and cuffs fresh off my wrists. My base was probably back in the lake by now, swimming free. But I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. As I drove home in my pickup truck, I passed a private property Willow Creek HOA residents only sign recently posted near the lake's entrance. I looked at the calm blue water one last time and made a decision. They thought they had power. They thought they could bully people like me. They thought they owned that lake. But they didn't know who they were messing with. If they wanted to treat that lake like their treasure, I was going to show them what happens when you take treasure from the wrong person. And that's how the war began. It had been 3 days since the HOA had slapped me with that 2-500 citation and paraded me off my favorite fishing spot like I was some thief. 3 days of replaying that moment in my head, remembering Pamela's smug grin and the heavy click of cold cuffs. But I hadn't just gone home and sulked. I got to work. You see, what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I wasn't just some backwoods fisherman in dirty boots and a rusty pickup. I was also a private investor. Quiet, calculated, and very well connected. My name is Derek Lawson, and while they laughed at my jeans and old truck, they missed the fact that I owned 3 companies, sat on 2 advisory boards, and had the kind of savings that didn't fit in a checking account. And I had one goal now: buy the lake. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about principle, about standing up for every resident those HOA goons had bullied with ridiculous rules, fines, and overreach. I'd seen what they'd done to others, forcing retirees to repaint their houses, fining single moms for lawn height, even banning kids from riding bikes on the sidewalk. Enough was enough. I started by going to the county records office. I wanted to see exactly how the HOA had gotten control of Willow Creek Lake. According to them, they had acquired it from the county through a maintenance annexation agreement. Sounded official, but to someone like me, it smelled fishy. The clerk pulled up the file, and what I saw made my blood boil. The HOA had bought the surrounding land around the lakeanot, the lake itself. A clever move. They had also filed for exclusive recreational rights through a temporary agreement the county had allowed pending a full environmental review. In other words, the lake still belonged to the county, and it was up for lease. That's when the plan hit me like a bolt of lightning. I walked straight into the County Water Authority office the next day. Sat down with a man named Mr. Galvin, who handled municipal water bodies and recreational lease permits. I told him my intentions quietly and respectfully. I want to lease the lake. All of it, including the surrounding shoreline and dock access. He looked surprised. You're aware that Willow Creek HOA is currently the applicant? I am. But they don't own the water. And from what I saw in the file, they've had multiple community complaints filed against their board in the last year. Not exactly the best stewards of public space. Galvin raised a brow. You've done your homework. I smiled. I always do. He leaned forward. You're prepared to cover all liability insurance, public safety enforcement, environmental protections, and maintenance? Absolutely. I'll also contribute 50-0 to the County Conservation Fund annually. His eyes lit up. Give me a week, he said. And so I waited. But I didn't just sit around. I called a real estate attorney, a smart one. We filed paperwork creating a brand new holding company, Willow Water Holdings, LLC, with one goal: take full management rights of the lake. During that same week, I paid a local journalist to do a public records investigation on the HOA board members, specifically Pamela Reese and her 2 sidekicks. Turns out, they'd used HOA dues to pay for catered luncheons, private landscaping at their homes, and even a ski trip labeled Board Leadership Retreat. Disgusting. That weekend, the HOA held a community picnic near the lake. I didn't go, but my drone did. Hovering quietly above the trees, it captured footage of Pamela giving a speech about community unity and protecting the lake from outsiders. The same lake they'd just weaponized against people like me. Then on Monday morning, I got the call. Mr. Galvin. Mr. Lawson, he said, The county has reviewed your proposal. You are now the exclusive recreational leaseholder of Willow Creek Lake for the next 20 years. I didn't speak at first. My heart pounded. You've also been granted authority to regulate access, establish usage rules, and post signage per county code. Congratulations. I thanked him and hung up. Then I smiled. It was my lake now. The next day, I returned to the lake. This time, I wasn't carrying a fishing pole. I was carrying a sign. 3 feet tall, double-sided, white with bold red letters. Private property. Access restricted. By order of Willow Water Holdings, LLC. No trespassing, HOA access revoked. I planted it right at the entrance. Then I posted 2 more, one by the boat ramp and one on the dock. People stared. Joggers paused. One man took photos. Then I saw her, Pamela, marching down the hill in her windbreaker, clipboard under one arm, fury on her face. "What is the meaning of this?" she snapped. I turned slowly, calm as ever. "Good morning, Pamela. You can't just post signs on our lake." "It's not your lake," I said simply. "Not anymore." I handed her the legal copy of my lease agreement from the county. She read it once, then twice. Her hands began to shake. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "No mistake," I said. "You arrested me for fishing. Now you and your entire HOA are banned from touching this lake." Neighbors began gathering. One man clapped. Someone whistled. Pamela's face went pale. "I'll fight this," she said weakly. "You're welcome to try. But while you do, maybe you should think about all those fines you've handed out, all the people you bullied. Maybe next time you'll remember." I paused, giving her a final smile. Not every man in boots and jeans is powerless. For the first time in years, Willow Creek Lake sat still and silent. No paddleboards. No HOA kids yelling from the dock. No early morning joggers splashing by the shore. Just my no trespassing signs flapping in the breeze, and a fresh coat of paint on the gate that now stayed locked 24/7. And word was spreading fast. It didn't take long for the neighborhood to explode in outrage. HOA members started flooding Pamela's email. The HOA Facebook group turned into a war zone. Residents who used to praise her leadership now flooded her with furious comments. "My kids can't even go to the lake anymore? This is what my dues are paying for? You arrested someone over fishing and got the whole neighborhood banned?" She tried to do damage control. She held an emergency HOA meeting that Sunday. I wasn't invited, but I showed up anyway. You don't need an invite when you own the lake everyone's fighting about. I sat in the back row of the crowded clubhouse, arms crossed, listening. Pamela stood at the front, wearing a navy suit and forcing a smile. "Let me be clear. This situation is temporary. We are working with county officials to reverse the lease and reclaim access to our shared resource." A hand shot up. Mr. Delgadoon of the older residents who'd fished that lake since the 80s. "You mean the lake you never owned?" Gasps filled the room. Pamela straightened. "The lake borders our community. That gives us—" "It gives us nothing," I said, standing. "But I have a signed lease that gives me everything." All eyes turned to me. Someone whispered, "That's him." I held up the lease. "This was granted by the county water authority. I pay the fees. I cover liability. I manage access. The lake belongs to Willow Water Holdings, which is me." A woman in the crowd asked, "Why did you do this?" I looked around, slowly. I was arrested. For fishing. I got humiliated in front of my neighbors. Handcuffed for sitting quietly by the water. And no one, not Pamela, not the guards, not a single board member apologized. "You just threw a citation in my face and acted like you owned me." A silence swept the room. Uncomfortable, heavy. "I bought the lake because someone had to stop the madness," I continued. "Pamela and her board weren't protecting this place. They were controlling it, punishing people, intimidating them. You've all seen it." I just pushed back. People began nodding. I left before the meeting ended, but I knew the damage was done. Pamela had lost her crowd. Over the next few days, I received letters. Some were from angry residents especially, the more elite ones near the north end of the neighborhood, calling me selfish and bitter. But the majority? They were thank you notes. From retirees who finally felt like someone had stood up to the HOA. From a single dad whose daughter was once fined for flying a kite near the water. From a veteran who'd been told his American flag was too large for neighborhood standards. They thanked me. And I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. So I got organized. I set up a website, protectwillowlake.org, and I posted the full story there. The arrest, the lease, the misuse of HOA power. I even uploaded the footage from my drone and a screenshot of the 500 citation. The site exploded in traffic. Local news picked up the story. Man arrested by HOA for fishing, retaliates by buying the lake. It aired that night. People in my town couldn't stop talking about it. I became the quiet hero of the neighborhood. And Pamela? She was in deep water. The desperation begins. A few days later, I got a certified letter from the HOA's lawyer. It claimed I was violating a community serenity ordinance by locking residents out of a shared natural resource. I smiled. There was no such ordinance. I handed it to my lawyer, who nearly laughed. This is weak, desperate. They know they're losing. But Pamela wasn't done. The next morning, I found my mailbox missing. Literally gone. Post dug up. Gone. My property line flags were pulled out. Someone spray-painted selfish across the side of my truck. I called the sheriff. Looks like targeted vandalism, he said. Got any enemies? I didn't answer. But I knew. This wasn't just about fishing anymore. It was war. I decided to escalate. The next morning, I hired a security team reel professionals and stationed 2 guards at the lake entrance. I posted an official sign. Willow Lake temporarily closed. Due to HOA harassment and vandalism. Reopening TBD. That did it. Pamela lost her cool. She showed up at my property, red-faced, yelling that I had no right to punish the whole community. I calmly recorded her on my phone and said, "You punished me first, remember? This is just your mirror." She stormed off. But I had one more card to play. One that would end this. I knew Pamela wasn't going to stop. Not after the cameras. Not after the public backlash. Not even after her own neighbors turned on her. The HOA had spent years controlling, people dictating what kind of flowers you could plant, what color your mailbox had to be. And now, who could dip a fishing line in the lake? And now that the leash had slipped, they were panicking. I could see it in their desperation, the fake ordinance, the vandalism, the angry visits. So I made a decision. It was time to finish this once and for all. The HOA Summit. I called for a community-wide town hall. This time, not run by the HOA but by me. I rented the community center using my own funds. Flyers were posted. Emails went out. And in less than 48 hours, the RSVP list passed 300 people. That night, the room was packed. Standing room only. The walls buzzed with tension, people whispered. Reporters were present this time. Local news cameras, microphones. It wasn't just a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was a public reckoning. I walked up to the podium. No suit, no tie. Just my jeans, boots, and a manila folder in my hand. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I didn't want this fight. I didn't start it. But I'm going to end it." I opened the folder. "These," I said, holding up several papers, "are copies of financial records I received via a whistleblower, a former HOA treasurer." People murmured. "These records show misuse of HOA dues. Thousands spent on personal landscaping, board retreats, and catered parties labeled as emergency planning, all without member votes." Gasps spread across the room. Pamela, seated in the front row, went pale. I handed copies to the press. "But that's not all," I said. Pamela and 2 other board members also submitted forged documents to the county to fast-track recreational rights over Willow Lake. That's how they tried to claim it. It's fraud. Pamela stood up, shaking her head. "This is a lie. You can't prove anything." "I don't have to," I replied calmly. "The county did. I filed a complaint 2 weeks ago. Their internal legal team opened an investigation. And 2 days ago, they officially revoked Willow Creek HOA's charter." The room exploded. Some people cheered. Some gasped. A few sat stunned. Pamela tried to speak, but her voice was drowned out. I held up one more document. Effective immediately, Willow Creek OA is dissolved pending a full audit. All dues, collection, enforcement, and penalties are suspended. And for the first time in years, this community can finally breathe. The fallout was swift. Pamela and 2 board members were placed under investigation. Residents demanded refunds for years of outrageous fines and dues. The community appointed a new volunteer-led council to manage shared resource open, transparent, and elected by vote. And as for me, I reopened the lake. But with one small twist. At the entrance, a new sign went up. "Welcome to Willow Lake. Open to the public. No HOA members from former Willow Creek Board allowed. All others. Fish freely, respect nature, be kind." People laughed. Kids ran to the dock. Grandparents dusted off their old rods. It felt like the town had been let out of a cage. And me? I went right back to my favorite spot on the bank, laid my tackle box down, and cast my line with the morning sun at my back. A neighbor passing by said, "You really did it, huh?" I smiled. I just wanted to fish. Spring came early to Willow Lake that year. For the first time in a long while, the air felt lighter. No more patrols. No board members peeking through hedges. No citations slipped under front doors for forgetting trash day. Just the sound of laughter, the ripple of water, and rods casting gently into the breeze. It had been a month since the HOA fell, and still, people stopped me in town to say thank you. They called me a hero, a legend. But I never wanted any of that. I just wanted peace. Fishing had always been my escape. It reminded me of my dad, who taught me how to bait a hook when I was 6, sitting on an old dock with a bucket of worms and 2 orange sodas between us. Every time I fished, I felt close to him. Like those quiet moments by the lake were stitched into my soul. And nobody had the right to take that from me. A letter in the mail. One morning, a crisp white envelope landed in my mailbox. No stamp, no address, just my name. Inside was a handwritten note. "I was wrong, completely. What we did to you and others was abuse of power. I hope you'll find it in your heart to forgive me someday. Pamela Reese." I stared at it for a long time. No excuses, no denial, just regret. Maybe she was finally learning. Maybe the silence of losing control taught her what the voices of neighbors never could. I didn't respond, but I folded the note and placed it in the back of my fishing journal. Not because I forgave her, but because I wanted to remember what happens when power goes unchecked and how even the smallest act of resistance can ripple like water. That weekend, we held a community fish fry at the lake. Families brought lawn chairs. Kids ran barefoot on the grass. Music played from a portable speaker someone set up on the dock. It was a slice of joy the neighborhood hadn't tasted in years. I stood by the grill, flipping catfish with old man Delgado and a teenager named Malik, whose basketball court the HOA once tried to tear down for violating aesthetic standards. We laughed. We ate. We healed. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the water in shades of gold and tangerine, I sat alone on the bank with my rod in hand. A boy walked up, maybe 8 years old, holding a plastic tackle box almost too big for him. "Sir, can I fish here?" I looked at him, smiled, and nodded. "Course you can, buddy. This lake's free now." He grinned wide and sat beside me. And we cast our lines together, strangers made family by the water. Time passed. The lake became a symbol of what could happen when people stood up, spoke out, and reclaimed what was rightfully theirs. A local magazine even ran a feature. "The Man Who Bought the Lake: How One Citizen Dismantled a Rogue HOA." I kept the article, but never framed it. Fame wasn't my goal. I wasn't after headlines. I was after justice, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of quiet. So when people asked what started it all, I'd just chuckle and say, all I wanted was to catch a fish in peace. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.